But Pishima. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanam Nanda Vraja Janaram Jana Yashodanam Nanda Vraja Janaram Jana Vraja Janaram Yamuna Tira Manachari Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is today we are going to read the, from the last, an article from the last article, the magazine, March, April 2026. And the article is called Pishima, Sister, Servant, and Saint. This is by Satya Prakash. And we know that Pishima was the Srila Prabhupada's sister. So It's good. Uh, I believe that this article came up because it's in our discussions in ISKCON. Um, and he came up with resolutions and after the last meeting in Manipur, that the discussion was if women they can be Shiksha gurus, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. And there's some opposition of it, especially in India, and because the cultures you know, different. And of course, after many years of this back and forth discussion, in the beginning, some of the after some discussions, it was approved by the GBC to have a Diksha Guru who can give initiation, initiation. So we have in our movement only one devotee that was assigned to have a disciple. Um, her name is Nile. Uh, After that, we stopped that. The discussions were if women are qualified or we should. Some of the arguments from the opposition it was that in the time when Srila Prabhupada was present in this planet, uh, there were no uh, birth, there were no second initiation for women in the beginning. And later, uh, Prabhupada giving a second initiation. In India, it was, as we know, the scriptures also say in Bhagavad Gita that women in Surya were not qualified for Brahmana position. But also we know that the scripture says that in Kali Yuga, what's this verse? I don't know the whole verse, but it was that as soon as everyone who was born in Kali Yuga is a Surya by birth. Of course, by qualification, one could become Brahmana, but in this age, everybody is born as a Surya. So there's also disqualification for the position for all of us. And then not only women, men also, same condition. Then so many things to talk about. But as we know, the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave uh, this praise, this uh, Hare Krishna chanting, Hare Krishna movement in one sense, that everyone can be qualified as a devotee of Krishna, and besides his position in the society. It depends on service. We are all servants of Krishna and qualified. It doesn't matter what condition. We, we have various, lots of examples in the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like uh, Haridas Thakur. He is uh, is the father of the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. And he was accepted as a most qualified person, and he was a Muslim. Uh, he was the low caste um, bird came up. There is also like Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy, he was a king. He was also got disqualified uh, for according to the tradition to be a Brahmana, but he was accepted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Any position in society mm, that disqualification to become Bhakti Krishna. So this discussion today come back and forth in some in many arguments, and it's good to come somehow uh, read and be aware of it, and it's very important. They are very important, especially in Western world. Finally, the GBC North America, they are they, after some discussion, become they got this solution that don't think it's an completely as an authorized resolution, but the position of the GBC is that women also they should be they can there are by qualification they can become guru, they can take disciples. So that was a very strong message to the GBC, and but still mm, this is ongoing discussion. Okay, so we are going to read this article, which is very nice to understand what is really a qualification for somebody who is very, very interested in devotee of Krishna. And this is what is Pishima. Okay, among the Prabhupada's three siblings, his younger sister recognized, recognized his spiritual stature and supported him in his mission. Srila Prabhupada often says he was a pure devotee of Sri Radha Krishna, and she showed her complete faith in Lord on many occasions. That is mentioned by Charu Swami in the Bhakti Head, number 5 in 1980. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Reverend, uh, found, Reverend founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, was born into a deeply devotional family, and from an early age he showed profound symptoms of divine love. Long before his transformative encounter with his beloved spiritual master Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1974, 1937, the spark of devotion already burned between him, uh, a spark that his guru would later handle into a blazing fire. Prabhupada's father, Gaur Mohanty, cloth merchant and modest of modest income, you're understanding my reading, maybe I can or somebody can read this better than me. Mm. Okay. Howard's father, called Mohamed, a cloth merchant of modest income, was a devout Vaishnava, and Howard's mother, Rajani, was likewise a pious and religiously inclined woman. Um, raised in such a spiritual child's atmosphere, young Srila Prabhupada and his siblings were naturally drawn in devotional life. Under this gentle yet firm guidance of their father, they were introduced from an early age to the worship of Sri Radha and Krishna, and influenced that, according to Srila Prabhupada himself, would leave an indelible mark on his worldview, worldview, and ultimately inspired his global mission. Among Srila Prabhupada's siblings were his brother Krishna Charan and his sister Jeswari and Baba Tatini Devidasi. It's Baba Tatini, the youngest sister, who forms the heart of this article. Between ISKCON and Baba Tatini was affectionately known as Pishima, the Bengali word for one's maternal aunt. To Srila Prabhupada, however, she was far more than a sister. She was a trusted, confident in spiritual matters, and God sister having received initiation from the same guru. As, as we shall notice later, at the boat by Snari, with her purity of heart and depth of character, she left an indelible impression on all who came into her presence. While history rightly celebrates the towering figures who this is Satyaras has a very interesting way to, to explain his language is more difficult for regular lecture. Mm, um, to not publicly celebrate as foremost among devotees. She was an embodiment of humble service and silent sacrifice. She was an steadfast support of her brother, not through, not through grand gestures of public claim, but through the purity of her example, living life or complete dedication to Krishna. Um, I don't. I think uh, maybe we can somebody else can read it in a better language. You want to read this? Mhm. Because otherwise we are going to sleep in the class. Thank you.
in the study. Hare Krishna. Continuing. Next title for this part of the article. Related by birth, united in devotion. Born in 1899 in Calcutta, now Kolkata, 3 years after her brother, Pishima shared with young Abai, as Srila Prabhupada was then known, their father's devotion to Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Quote, when I was 5 or 6 years old, quote, Prabhupada once recalled, I requested my father, Father, give me this deity, I shall worship. The father purchased for me little Krishna and Radha. My sister and I were imitating. Whatever foodstuff we got, we would offer to Krishna and eat the remnants. In this way, our lives developed. Referring to a neighborhood temple, Prabhupada told devotees they were standing for hours together, seeing the Krishna deity, and that is the inspiration of our devotional life. Even their childhood play was woven with the thread of spirituality. My kite always flew higher than hers, Prabhupada said with a laugh, until she started chanting, Govinda, Govinda, help me. Then her kite flew higher than mine. One of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, Vishaka Devidasi, writes with admiration, quote, clearly from their foundational years, Prabhupada and Pishima were imbued with godliness. In 1904, when Srila Prabhupada was 8 years old, he was admitted to Mati Lal Seal Free School near the day home in Govinda Bhavan. 3 years later, Pishima began her early schooling. While the primary section, nursery to class 4, was coeducational, the secondary section, class 5 and above, was reserved for boys. Pishima's formal education thus concluded after these 8 years, though she was homeschooled for some time after that. Pishima married at a young age, as was common in Bengal at that time, and had her first child soon thereafter. Starting a family was important to her, but like her brother, her deepest concerns lay in the realm of spiritual life. Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur initiated Pishima into the chanting of the holy name, and after he passed from this world in 1937, she received formal Diksha, or second initiation, from Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers. This much is well known. An eyewitness, a disciple of Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, recounts the story in an interview featured in Mula Prakriti Devi Dasi's book, our Srila Prabhupada, a friend to all. She got second initiation, yeah. But after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta passed away. After Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati went into Apakata Leela, passed away, Prabhupada had asked his wife and sister, from whom will you now take Diksha, initiation? His sister, Pishima, had already taken her Harinam initiation from Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, but his wife had not. They didn't know what to do, so he recommended that they take initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj. In this way, they became the disciples of Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, and became the god sister of Pishima and Radharani Devi, Srila Prabhupada's wife before he took sannyas. Not much is known about Pishima's married life, but we do know that she married into a well-to-do Dutta family who were staples in the gold and jewelry business of 20th century Bengal. Like the Day family, they were part of a well-established mercantile class and highly regarded, with significant social respectability, financial stability, and intergenerational wealth. Pishima married Sri Raj Vihari Dutta, the eldest son of Sri Haridas Dutta. Raj Vihari and his brother Gokul Vihari were prominent businessmen, and their brands and their shops still exist in Kolkata. Pishima quietly used a small portion of the proceeds from the ventures to support Srila Prabhupada in printing books and establishing temples, uh, choosing to remain anonymous out of humility. Originally, the Day property was in Bora Bazar, one of Calcutta's oldest and busiest commercial neighborhoods. It was a hub of trade during British rule and still remains vibrant with markets and traders. The family eventually relocated to Talegaon, their maternal uncle's home in South Calcutta, which was a quieter, more residential area, and this is where the family grew. After marriage, however, Pishima and her husband moved to Tala, a prominent neighborhood in central Calcutta, some distance away. But Pishima remained close to her family, even if in a separate household, as was typical of Bengali post-marriage family arrangements. Raj Behari and Pishima had 7 sons of their own and adopted 2 more early on. Besides being a dutiful wife and mother, Pishima was completely dedicated to her sadhana, spiritual practice, and her unflinching dependence on the Lord. Her friends often remarked that she was never without the Lord's name on her lips, regardless of what she was doing. Additionally, she was known to carry a plastic bottle filled with Gangajal, sacred Ganges water, which she would sprinkle on others and, and on seats after she had used them. With the establishment of ISKCON, she became a familiar presence at Srila Prabhupada's principal temples in India, especially those in Mayapur, Vrindavan, and Calcutta. There, she devoted herself to cooking for the devotees, teaching them traditional methods of food preparation and offering guidance in whatever way she could. Though she spoke only Bengali, she conveyed much through her actions and gestures, instructing more by example than by words. Anti of the devotees. In Srila Prabhupada's coming, Mahamaya Devi Dasi, who regularly associated with Pishima in the 1970s, lovingly portrays her as a figure of deep devotion and humility, who fully honored her brother as Jagat Guru, the universal Guru, just as his disciples did. She alone, among their family members, recognized Prabhupada's spiritual stature and supported his mission with singular faith. Many say that Pishima's most cherished offering to Srila Prabhupada and his disciples was her incomparable cooking. In Vaishnava art, she practiced with deep affection and devotion. Among the many delicacies she prepared, she was especially renowned for her shukta, a distinctive bitter-sweet Bengali dish traditionally made with an assortment of seasonal vegetables and tempered with pungent spices and, and a touch of bitter gourd. Prabhupada especially liked her use of mustard seed oil as applied to Shukta. Whenever Pishima was in proximity, Srila Prabhupada would request her Shukta, and each day she would prepare it anew, never repeating the same composition. No two Shuktas were ever alike, for she possessed an intuitive mastery over its intricate balance of flavors, bitter, savory, and subtly spiced. Prabhupada would often say that no Shukta in the entire world could rival hers. Pishima's hand in the kitchen was guided by both tradition and divine inspiration, but it was the mustard seed oil that Srila Prabhupada really responded to. The use of mustard oil wasn't merely for taste. In Bengali culinary tradition, it also carried medicinal and purificatory qualities, believed to cleanse the system and stimulate digestion, especially when paired with bitters and shukta. For Srila Prabhupada, those whose palate was refined by both Ayurvedic wisdom and his affection for his younger sister, Pishima Shukta prepared with mustard seed oil and the care of his sister's devotion must have embodied the very flavor of home, both his parental home in Calcutta and primary home in the spiritual world. Her expertise as a cook, of course, began in her home. She would regularly prepare meals for her husband and children, honing her talents for the day she would join her brother at his mission. Indeed, her marriage began with difficulties, but due to her service attitude, harmony was restored over time. Srila Prabhupada once shared with us, recalls Bhavananda Das, that when she got married, her husband initially lived in a way that wasn't aligned with spiritual values. He was involved in behavior that caused her some concern. During that time, she would often go to Prabhupada and ask for guidance, wondering how she might help her husband change. Prabhupada reminded her of the small Radha Krishna deities they had worshipped as children and told her he still had them. He gave them to her and encouraged her to worship them sincerely and pray for her husband's well-being. According to Prabhupada, Bhavananda continued, she did just that. In addition, she kept serving her husband and consistently prayed to Radha Govinda for his transformation. Over the years, her dedication had a profound impact. Eventually, her husband changed completely, adopted a spiritual practice, and came to deeply respect her. Prabhupada said he even came to revere her, recognizing her devotion and selflessness in wishing only the best for him through her prayers and service. Various Prabhupada disciples were deputed to take care of Pishima, especially when she would stay at ISKCON centers. These devotees included Anangamanjari Devi Dasi, Dani Shakti Devi Dasi, and Mahamaya Devi Dasi. I was fortunate enough to interview all of them, and they were unanimous in their deep respect for Pishima. She was fearless, recalled Anangamanjari Devi Dasi. She would often invite family to her home, where she would have me lead kirtan and play mridanga. Thereafter, she would preach strongly to her family members about Krishna consciousness. A striking example of her fearlessness emerged during the communal riots between Hindus and Muslims in Calcutta in 1948, at a time when most residents stayed indoors, particularly after dusk, for fear of violence. She determinedly maintained her daily visits to the local Radha Krishna temple. Her steadfast devotion and courageous commitment to her faith and vividly reflected accounts of her unrelenting efforts to behold the deities, undeterred by the surrounding turmoil. Shruti Rupa Devi Dasi remembers Prabhupada's high regard for Pishima's vast learning. Srila Prabhupada told Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who was already quite learned, that he wanted to understand the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he should ask Pishima, and she knew it very well. Pishima's affection and humor endeared her to the devotees. In Vrindavan days, Hayagriva describes her as the favorite grandmother type, expressive and loving. She cooked tirelessly, passed on traditional recipes, and affectionately teased her brother. You can digest nails if you want to, she once teased him when he commented on the strong mustard oil in her Bengali dishes. This despite his well-known love for her cooking. In I'll Go to a Temple, the Jewish story, Giriraj Swami recounts that 3 years after a significant event, Srila Prabhupada's younger sister and godsister, Bhavatari Devi Dasi, arrived from Bengal to be with him. Prabhupada had described her as a pure devotee, and she was indeed recognized as such. Devotees were instructed to call her Pishima, the Bengali term for father's sister. She was deeply respected for her sincere and simple devotion to Lord Krishna and his devotees, and her resemblance to Prabhupada made her presence even more cherished. Yamuna Devi, one of Srila Prabhupada's earliest disciples, recalls how Prabhupada would translate Pishima's handwritten Bengali letters aloud in San Francisco in 1967, reflecting fondly on their shared childhood. Yamuna saw Pishima for the first time in a photograph. Quote, when a grainy black and white group photo arrived one day, she was easy to identify. Her face bore a striking resemblance to Srila Prabhupada's. On more than one occasion, Yamuna remembers Prabhupada spoke of Pishima's cooking abilities. Yamuna, a noted cook herself, made a mental note, I must learn everything I can from her. As the years wore by, Pishima shared her recipes and expertise with Yamuna. With many of these culinary tidbits becoming well known throughout ISKCON, largely as a result of Yamuna's acclaimed and award-winning cookbook, Lord Krishna's Cuisine, The Art of Indian Vegetarian Cooking. The next section, an intimate departure. In the days of Pishima's declining health, she resided in Sridham, Mayapur, with a simplicity that endeared her to other devotees. Her evenings were filled with devotional warmth, and she led bhajans on the veranda. Her sweet and melodic voice drawing others into absorption. Her favorite song, Manasa Deha Geha, written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, often moved the assembled devotees to tears. On one particular evening, it moved them so deeply that they missed the regular evening arati in the temple, where they were fully engrossed in their emotional output. Though Srila Prabhupada mildly chided them for missing the service, he clearly appreciated his sister's sincere devotion. Mahamaya's book further recounts Pishima's austere and traditional lifestyle, marked by cleanliness as a form of worship. She bathed using Ganga Jal and cleansed her consciousness with the holy name. After attending class in the temple, she would wash the area where she had sat with Ganga Jal, reflecting her profound humility and Vaishnava decorum. One of the most moving accounts of Pishima's passing on March 13, 1980, came from Anandamanjari Devi Dasi, who cared for her during her final days in Mayapur. Pishima had deteriorated so much, said Ananda, that one morning I went to Prabhupada's Samadhi memorial tomb and prayed, "What can I do for her? Take her, she only wants to be with you." Returning to the room, Ananda Manjari found Pishima near unconsciousness. No one could seem to get any reaction from her. When I came into the room, Ananda remembers, the others just shook their heads, crying as they left, leaving me all alone with her. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, slumped over, and I was rubbing her back and chanting japa with the other hand, trying to figure out what to do. As I started chanting, and Ananda continued, I noticed her fingers move, as if she was chanting japa too. That's how I knew she could hear me. I asked her in my broken Bengali, Pishima, do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need water or milk? Can I do anything for you? No answer. But I knew she could hear me, so I put on Prabhupada's recording of Nitai Padakamala, a favorite among the devotees. When asked if she could hear, Pishima finally replied faintly, ha, meaning yes. As the day progressed, the atmosphere in the room began to change. A loud, exuberant kirtan swelled, and the chanting grew increasingly fervent. Yet Ananda felt a quiet conviction rise within her. This wouldn't be pleasing to Pishima. Ananda hurried out and approached the senior devotees, Nitai Chand Swami, and requested that he calm the crowd. This he did, and as he brought a gentle stillness to the gathering, a serene contemplative kirtan followed. It was in this sweet, gentle atmosphere that she gave up her bodily form. Pishima's eyes fluttered, Ananda tells us, and her mouth began to move, and went closer to her lips. She whispered, Hare, 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 Hare. And that was her last breath. At that moment, Ananda was there, gently holding her hand, watching carefully as the great soul returned to Krishna. Afterwards, Ananda recalls the body radiated a light. Earlier, she had appeared somewhat withered, as the elderly often do. But now, a luminous glow seemed to emanate from her, undeniable and vivid. I wondered if I was imagining it until two pujaris entered the room. Without a word, remarked, she's glowing. Next section. An exemplary life. Pishima's life embodied the ideal synthesis of tradition and transcendence. She was a wife, a mother, a scholar, a preacher, and a Vaishnavi of extraordinary courage. She embraced the role of a nurturing auntie to ISKCON's growing family while quietly maintaining high standards of devotional excellence. Pishima's life is a testament to the power of feminine devotion expressed within the bounds of Dharma. She loved her brother, served her deities, educated the next generation, was a devoted wife and mother, and never compromised her standards. She exemplified humility, strength, sweetness, and shastric depth, a combination rarely found and even more rarely acknowledged. To remember Pishima is to remember that the roots of the Krishna consciousness movement stretch deep into the soil of a sacred family, loving service, and profound internal conviction. In honoring Pishima, we remember that the glories of Srila Prabhupada's movement manifest not just by the towering figure of the Acharya himself, but by the dedication of his most prominent disciples. Nor by the dedication of his most prominent disciples, but by a constellation of steadfast souls like Pishima, unseen, uncelebrated, but utterly essential. We conclude by honoring her profound devotion, exemplified on November 14th, 1977, the day Srila Prabhupada's transcendental departure, which she humbly served at his feet in Vrindavan, selflessly attending to him without a thought for her own needs or desires. Quote, the room was filled with crying and wailing, remembers Giri Radhaswami. The kirtan was going wild, with devotees chanting Hare Krishna and Jai Prabhupada. Pishima, weeping piteously, went to the foot of Prabhupada's bed, lifted the chadar, and placed his feet on her head. Then she took dust from them and smeared it on her head and her eyes. Other devotees followed, clutching Prabhupada's lotus feet. It was Pishima who placed herself squarely at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet when he left this mortal world, which devotees would not long for such a blessing. Through her life, she remained steadfast in her devotion, not only as a sister, but as a humble servant of the great Acharya, whose very name, Prabhupada, means he at whose feet the Master sits. It was she who made her place there, indeed, quite literally, with a heart full of love. In this way, Pishima's life had come full circle, from offering her support and service to Prabhupada in the early days, remaining by his side during his final moments, to embodying the spirit of a surrendered devotee. Should be at his feet figuratively in life and literally at the time of his departure is a sign of a soul who truly understood his mission and honored it with uncompromising love. That's the end. Pishima,